Okay, it says we are live, Bill. So,
All
so I
right,
guess
we're
yeah,
live then.
yeah, we are. Okay, okay, everybody, welcome to the Man Thing Retrospective. This is really we're going to be talking a little bit about his background, but we're really going to concentrate on his first series, which was cover dated January 1974. Okay, because if I guess we could have started back in Savage Tales and cut this into two pieces, but it would have been a little bit disjointed, I think, if we would have done it that way, because his appearances were just everywhere. So first, let me introduce my co-host, Bill Miller, Comic Mag Musings. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I am doing very well. Always a good time when we're doing a retrospective. And
I agree.
I
I'm
love these
looking
deep
forward to
dives, as you know.
dissecting this series.
Oh yes, I love to get my hands down in that muck,
There you
and
go. The
feel the
mire.
clay, of the story.
Absolutely.
And this is a very, I think you'll agree, Bill. This is a very, very different series from almost anything out there in the Bronze Age.
It is. Two big reasons for that. Number one, the
In
writer.
almost every regard.
Yeah, Steve Gerber was very, very different, period. He was just out there. He was very much a comic book artist begging for the opportunity to be a novelist. Kind of like a lot of frustrated novelists, but he realized, I think, early on that this is my gig in life. So let me look for opportunities to kind of work in my prose in non-traditional ways. And he did that throughout this series, Howard the Duck, some of the others as well. And the second one is, due to the nature of Man Thing, it really is, he's the nexus for stories about other characters. He's right. The star of the book, but he rarely stars in each story.
Correct. This is if you're expecting a superhero comic, go somewhere else.
Yeah,
because
well, don't go anywhere
far
else.
Afield,
listen in,
from anything
and you'll like
like
it anyway.
Spider-Man. No, I mean, you can listen now, but I'm saying the comic itself it's not superhero. It doesn't have it. It's really a genre unto its own. It has psychological drama, and has elements of horror, sci-fi, sword and sorcery, fantasy, maybe a little soap opera thrown in. I mean, it's just everywhere, depending on the way that the writer unwinds the story around the Man Thing.
Right.
We're going to get to the chat in a minute, because I see a lot of our good
friends dovetail on that, Roger. I do think that they wanted to brand this with their horror at that particular point in time, but Steve Gerber's stories really didn't lend itself well to that. And he kind of pulled them out of that direction, and they weren't able to kind of box it in with Werewolf and Tomb of Dracula, some of the other stories. So I think that was their original intention, and I think his writing kind of carried them away from that.
Right. I think if you look at the very first appearances in Savage Tales, Astonishing Tales, it certainly had more horror like elements to it. And there's definitely horror here. Don't get me wrong. I mean, every issue has a little bit of horror, but that is sort of like just sort of the excuse for the genre. It's not the reason for it. And I think we talked before, Bill, that let's set some foundation here for this series, right?
Yep.
The Man Thing itself is really not, the story does not revolve. I mean, there's narration of what the Man Thing's possible motivations and reactions are, but he doesn't have a mouth to speak, and he has very rudimentary intelligence, right? So he's more a reactionary about what's happening around him. Okay, he doesn't initiate really much of anything. There's maybe a few times where he kind of goes outside that and has moments of clarity, but for the most part, you know, we know this, right? He's made up of muck, branches, roots, leaves, dirt, and that is his substance. He has no bones. He has no infrastructure. So things will go through him.
Correct.
And things get stuck inside him because the muck is pretty deep. Once he approaches somebody, it's because there's a strong emotional element to them, whether it be hate, whether it be fear, but especially fear, because if you're fearing and he's grabbing you, he's going to burn you wherever you're at, right? So throughout the stories, we're going to talk about that. You know, oh, he grabbed them with fear. You'll know automatically they got torched. All right.
Right. They were at the very least they were burned,
it kind of depends.
And they could have been killed. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a burn, and that, you know, your bandage, maybe like reburn. Other times it's like really severe, depending how intense the fear is, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't think he talked about that, right? But he's very reactionary. He goes where strong emotions are around him, right? Sometimes he just I don't know if he really hears, but he can feel the people, right? So the sort of as a ground rule, he has to also, at least in the beginning, before we get to issue 18, he gets his sustenance from the swamp itself. So if he's outside the swamp, he'll start dry out and be weakened, things like that. So if he's taken, and he can, and that's what one of his fears is, fire, for example, because he could dry out, lasers, things like that, electricity. Right. So we're going to get to that as we get into the stories itself. But that's sort of so you have a little foundation of what he's about. He was a scientist, a chemist named Ted Sallis, who wanted to do like a super soldier serum. And then he obviously it didn't work out the way he thought. And he was in a shack in the swamp. And then there were some mystical elements that combined with the science elements and turned him into the Man-Thing, a very almost mindless muck monster. Okay?
Right. His girlfriend at the time.
Anything you want to add, Bill, before we go? Shout out the.
Sure.
Yeah, correct. And there are stories in here about what in the past and all that. We'll get to that when time comes. All right, coming in here, Shanty Girl. She was in here. Actually, I'm assuming it's a she. Was in here tailgating. Welcome. Of course, your best bud, Jackson Roy Kirk, your supporter extraordinaire.
Darren.
We got Darren all the way from Australia. How you doing, my friend? My friend Nauman, who I was on his channel yesterday. Congratulations again, your 100 plus celebration on your way to 200. Oh. Of course, our buddy James Gallegos, whose names gets butchered every stream I hear.
I thought it was Gallegos,
but not this one, James. Hey, here's Robert, the G Spot. How you doing, my friend? I hope you and Mrs. G are doing well. And what do you say here? Love it, Metarog. Your passion. Oh, man, thank you. Your passion's pretty good yourself, by the way. So, yeah, spell check, no problems. We don't take off for spelling here, Robert. Don't worry. All right, so let's get started, Bill. Like I said, the story. We're going to start really love that shirt, by the way. Great Bruner art there, and that's
it is.
Man-Thing 1 right there.
Yep.
I think it's maybe mirrored or flipped or something.
It is.
But we're going to start there. But the story really starts here. I don't know how much we're going to get into Adventure into Fear, but that series, Man-Thing had met the Nether Spawn Thog. He ran into racism. He ran into nepotism. He ran into all kinds of. And there's a lot of social, political, and religious commentary throughout the series. Let me just warn you about that. All right.
Absolutely. Throughout any.
Let's just start here, Bill. Real quick. Well, true enough. But I think this one, Man-Thing, is where he really ratcheted it up. Howard the Duck was more in a satirical or form. And in Defenders, it was more veiled, but here he really hits you hard. Okay,
he does, absolutely. Very cool.
Yeah. Sometimes, like,
Yes.
Well, we'll get to that. But here, this is more in the vein. It starts like more in the vein of a regular comic. I'll say, you know, you have the goofiness here. Essentially, these guys are trying to capture Jennifer Kale because, well, before that, right? Jennifer Kale was supposedly like she had like a psychic kind of relationship with the Man-Thing, right? But here
sort
we
of
find
a
out
psychic connection, yes.
Right. Here we find out that that there's a wizard called Dakeem the Enchanter, and he's like the force for good, and he's fighting off these guys because what happens is that the nexus of all realities has sort of collapsed, and like all kinds of different timelines and dimensions are. So you got people from the Middle Ages, you got people from the future, and they're all and they're being rallied by this guy called the Overmaster. Or
that's right. It is the
like
Overmaster. Yep, it is the Overmaster. Right.
Yes. And
the swamp is
there's a lot going on here
for that.
The nexus, right? Yeah, swamp is the nexus. So they're fighting on. They're in the swamp, but Jennifer Kale, Dakeem takes her. He says, "Well, you're going to be my apprentice." He asked the parents, and they somehow said yes, right?
Yeah,
so
I know.
He takes her away to apprentice her, right? And then while that's going on, Korek, which is this guy here, really goofy, transports into a jar of peanut butter into our world.
Yeah.
So, and he initially starts fighting with the Man-Thing, and then because the nexus of all realities open, we got Howard the Duck coming out of there too, right? And they're going to find out the construction site in the swamp, see what's going on there because there's a ruckus, and they're fighting with the construction workers. And it's they're fighting all the demons and all the other reality people are that the Overmaster sent is fighting there. And then and also Jennifer Kale is captured, right?
She is
by the Overmaster. She's going to be sacrificed. And then Daredevil and Black Widow swoop in like one instant and to hold back the
you're running into issue
and
1.
And then Dakeem teleports her.
Yeah, you're running into issue 1.
Maybe I am. Yeah. Sorry, it's been a while.
She's not captured yet,
but this is a lot of fun.
It is.
Okay, this is a lot of fun.
This is a spicy book. That's the first appearance.
This is a lot of fun, really. It is. I mean, it's not a big. He appears maybe 3 or 4 panels, but yeah, it's cool. It's cool. This made me want to get the Man-Thing 1, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you take Man-Thing 1 since I've been talking enough.
Oh, no problem.
And this is a Bruner cover, by the way.
What's that? Bruner cover.
Bruner cover. That's all I said.
Yep. Is it Mayerick? Val Mayerick interiors?
Val Mayerick does the art, and of course Gerber writes the whole thing, so no problem there.
Yeah, he writes the whole series, including the annual issues. So in that one, you got Man-Thing, Howard, Korek. They're all fighting demons who are following the Overmaster. They're saved by Dakeem. Is it Dakeem? I guess I always said Dakeem, but maybe it's Dakeem. Jennifer Kale.
I said Dakeem too, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Dakeem. Jennifer Kale is imprisoned by the Congress of Realities. They're awaiting the Overmaster who plans on executing her. But that's when there's like a dimensional shift in realities, and Daredevil and Black Widow just appear briefly, and they disarm the executioners. Jennifer Kale turns into water, and kind of slips into the floorboards. That's kind of how she makes her escape, and she joins the others between the realms. And in order to realign in order to realign the nexus of all realities, they have to hop across the dimensional path, and that's where Howard leaves. So he's introduced in Fear 19. He leaves in Man-Thing number 1.
Man-Thing 1. He falls off
when he falls
staircase.
into a dimensional void. Yeah. And I guess to never be heard from again. But he falls into the dimensional void. Dakeem creates a helmet of protection for Korak. They end up realigning the Nexus. And the Overmaster and the Congress of Realities, because of that, though, can now access, what is it called? Theria, right? Theria, I think it is.
Theria.
Yeah. The city where they want to go and kill its gods because it's important to the Overmaster's takeover of the universe. So they battle Man-Thing and company in Theria, and they figure out the Overmaster is actually a demon called Thog. He's defeated by Man-Thing and he falls into a moat. And the Congress of Realities and their demon army hightail it out of there. The gods are actually 2 dogs that don't live in the castle area where they were fighting, but they live in a village just below that. And as often happens at the end of these issues, Dakeem or someone else just kind of sends everybody back to from whence they came, including the Man-Thing back to Citrusville in Florida, into the swamp.
Back to the swamp. That's right. Excellent. We got a few more people in here, so let's shout them out. We got Super Russ. How you doing, my friend?
What's
Michael
up, Russ?
Dodd, who's been back. Welcome. Great to have you back in the chats, man. You've been missed. Tim, the comic collector, is here, as is the Gray Man, all the way from the UK.
What's going on, Gray Man?
Let's see what. Why not Frank Stetson?
Tim, Russ.
No, and in fact, he says so.
Sorry.
Steve Gerber said so because somebody in a letter column accused him of being on dope or something, and he said, "I don't need it. This writes itself," he says, or something like that. So
I suspect Steven was at least rolling his own cigarettes, if you know what I mean. He has some far out stories and some very liberal ideas.
It was the 70s, so yeah. Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, so now we're back to status quo. We're back in the swamp here in Florida. Yep. Now I lived in West Miami, so I went to the Everglades many a time. All right, so I'll have my little interjections here and there about how accurate they depicted it. Right. There's not alligators everywhere in the swamp, by the way. But anyway, if you read this, you think they're everywhere. They're not everywhere, but they are. There
snakes and alligators aplenty.
Oh yeah, snakes there are, but not I only ran into a few alligators. But in this one here, we meet a very important character,
yes,
which is Richard Rory. And this guy is just the most depressing guy you ever want to meet, you know. Yeah. He thinks he is the biggest loser in the world. He's a jinx. Whatever he touches is just destroyed. And I think he's following the map, and he runs into the end of a road and runs out of gas, right? I'm not sure if he runs out of the gas yet here, but and then of course the Man-Thing shows up. He scares the bejeepers out of him. But since he has to be there, he's sort of he trips and all this, but he doesn't really get killed or hurt or anything like that, right? But then we have this lady here who shows up.
He was attacked by a gator. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's right. He was attacked by a gator, and the Man-Thing saved him. That's right.
But he passed out.
I was going there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going there, and then he got patched up by the Man-Thing with leaves and things, right?
Yeah.
So again, here you see that the Man-Thing, although he doesn't have that intelligence, he has a certain instinct about people
Right.
that he uses, right? So he wakes up, and this girl is there, and she's running away from something. She patches him up a little better because he's got a first aid kit in the van. He's got one of those VW vans, I think.
Right.
And she is running from her ex-boyfriend. I think his name was Snake, right?
It was, yes.
Right. And they're bike Snake. Figure that. And he's a biker. I mean,
Yep.
no tropes there.
Snake and the Skull Crushers.
And his favorite Snake and the Skull, and his favorite weapon is a chain, right?
Yep.
And apparently he told the rest of the gang that she stole their money, their treasury,
right,
their ill-gotten gains, whatever. Right. So she's running away from them, and she hid in the swamp. They're chasing her, and eventually they find out that that they're together. Snake finds them, and a battle ensues. Of course, Richard Rory is no match. He's just brushed aside essentially, right? And there's two other bikers also, and they're babes, they're women, right? But Snake is the other ones are like, they're really not that bad. They're like, they just want their money back, but
right.
But he wants to get back at the girl for leaving him. He feels very jilted, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So of course the Man-Thing, feeling now. Remember, he reacts to emotion, seeing the hate that Snake has and the fear that Ruth Hart, I think is her name.
It is Ruth Hart.
He intervenes and burns Snake's hands. Now, during this battle, Snake throws a chain into Man-Thing, and it gets stuck inside, and that's important.
Right.
That's important for next issue. Let me see my notes here. Am I missing anything? Bill? Important?
Well, yeah. I mean, wasn't F.A. Schist the construction owner? You're right. He wants to drain the swamp.
Was that going on here? Okay.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
Yeah.
He wants to drain the swamp to build an airport, right?
Yeah, drain the swamp.
And Man-Thing
let's put that together, Bill. F.A. Schist, right? Fascist.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's an Adventure to Fear. He runs into Schist, a construction company. They want to put an airport out here, which is ridiculous. But anyway, they want to put an airport out here, so they got to drain the swamp. But every time they try, Man-Thing is there because obviously they drain the swamp. He's killed because he gets his sustenance from there. So he hires this guy, Professor Slaughter, to create this trap, right? And he has some device in there that lures the Man-Thing in,
Sonic
and that
noises.
Happens in this issue or the next one?
Yeah. Sonic noises, that
happens in this issue.
In. And then they use electricity to dry him out essentially and weaken him.
Right, exactly. And he goes in there and it's drying him out, it's killing him. But remember, he has that chain in him, right? So the Man-Thing gets the chain and uses it to destroy the interior mechanisms. The place explodes, and the chain hits Snake in the back of the head and kills
him. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And I think that's the gist of that one.
Yeah, and I think that was Hargood Wickham, right? That he hired to build that.
Yeah, I think I call him Professor Slaughter because I seem to remember something about him. But
it's an MIT grad, Hargood Wickham, I think.
You want to take Fool Killer?
Sure. So that was a good one. So the construction workers are still there. They're trying to do their job, right? But Man-Thing keeps fighting with them. They keep fighting with him. And he ends up destroying that slaughter room that was created by Wickham to eliminate him. And the Skull Crusher gang learns about the truth about what happened to the treasury money, and they leave. They take off. They don't have anything against Ruth. They realize that it was actually Snake that stole the money and not her. They encounter the Fool Killer on the road when they're leaving, who kills them. And he comes to the swamp area. He gives Schiss 24 hours to leave. He knows that Man-Thing is Ted Sallis, and he shoots down a helicopter because he thinks it's Schiss in the helicopter. So the Fool Killer shoots it down. He has all kinds of guns and stuff. They'll get into his backstory in a couple issues, the next issue, I think. But he shoots it down. It was just a helicopter with innocent people, and he ends up killing the father, I think. But I think that might be next issue. I think in this issue, Man-Thing saves everyone in the helicopter from gators, because there are gators everywhere in a swamp. If you've ever been to a swamp, it's infested
everywhere
with gators. And I should know because I live in Phoenix, where a whole bunch of swampland abounds. So my concept, having never been to Florida or Louisiana or any of those gator infested swamp areas, is whatever is in the Man-Thing. That's what a swamp is like. So he saves them from the gators. And I think at the end of this issue, Fool Killer attacks Man-Thing with a laser pistol.
Right. And drives him out. And he slumps, kind of like thinking he was dead, right?
Correct.
But we know that he appears in the next issue, so he isn't dead, because remember, the swamp revitalizes and I was going to say Swamp Thing, the Man-Thing.
Yeah.
So he comes back to life. Yeah, and then Fool Killer, because the dad is saying, what are you talking about? You're babbling. So he just like, oh, you're a fool, kills him.
Right.
Right. And
we wouldn't have much of a country if that was the criteria for death.
Yeah, that would be problematic, right? So we find out, this is the origin here of Fool Killer. We find out that he was this kid that he was looking for purpose, and he was just very odd kid, right? And
well, he was an orphan, right?
Yeah, correct.
And he was disabled. Yeah.
Right, correct. But what he couldn't walk, right? But then he goes into this like one of these revival tents.
Yep.
And I think Reverend Mike, he goes up there, he calls him up there and supposedly heals him. So now he reveres this Reverend, and he himself becomes a preacher. And the whole bit, and very successful, lots of people coming in. But then he catches his idol with another woman drinking, and that sort of shatters his image.
Yeah.
Shatters his image of him, and he fashions this costume. He showed him, he fashions this costume because he just feels that people are just they're fools. They don't realize what it is to be a real person, to have goals and to have aspirations, to have faith.
Well, he
once
beat him to death, right? He beat Reverend Mike to death, and then he takes his money to fashion the costume, to buy a truck and outfit it with all this equipment and ammunition and weapons and stuff.
That laser pistol. Yep. And he puts Reverend Mike in a tube.
Yeah.
With formaldehyde or something. I don't know what it is.
Oh yeah, some preservative. Yeah.
Some preservative in there. Yeah. So he talks to him. He's like, he still has like a relationship with him. He's like, Dad, he doesn't answer back. So anyway, Bill, finish off here while I get some water.
No
Sorry.
problem. Yeah. So in this issue, Schist again is battling Man-Thing, tries to run him over with his Jeep. Doesn't work. Eventually, I can't remember. It might have been Richard who someone asked or encouraged Schist to actually do something good and take this family into town, right? The helicopter crash family into town. So he does that, but then Fool Killer on the road wrecks into that. Fool Killer he gets a lot of people on the road, that's for sure. And I think during this time, Richard Rory was a DJ. No. So they talk about back in Ohio, Richard Rory was a DJ.
Not yet.
Yeah. And the Fool Killer sent a letter to him saying, hey, you need to stop playing that blasphemous music. And of course, Richard Rory kind of antagonizes him and makes fun of him on air. And so really pisses him off. So Fool Killer knows Richard Rory and was coming after him. And he rams into this diner where I think Ruth, Richard Rory, and Man-Thing are at. And he takes Richard Rory as his prisoner. Man-Thing burns the Fool Killer. And Fool Killer's laser, when he tries to shoot, it gets destroyed, but it shoots off and it destroys the tank that Father or Reverend Mike is in. And the exploding shrapnel pierces Fool Killer's heart and kills him. Yep. And so I think that's what way that one ends.
Very good. Very good. No, that's it exactly the way it ends. And again, if you want to go deeper here, I mean, you know what is Gerber trying to tell us here, right? That that people that you have to be careful with the people that you worship and that you have faith in, right? Because everybody has nobody's perfect, and that's kind of what Fool Killer was thinking, right? He's looking for this perfection. He thought he was the only one, and when you have that mentality, you're never going to be anything but a fool yourself. So it's a play on words there, Fool Killer.
Yeah, but I think there was a deeper. I think there was a little bit deeper, just real quickly with Gerber. Gerber was very liberal. Don't lose sight of that. And I think he was very critical of any type of organized religion.
Agreed.
And so I think any opportunity he could take to take shots at religion and paint them in a bad light, he would do that.
Yeah, when we get to the book burning in Citrusville, that really comes to light.
Yep.
Let's see who else. Las Cruces from New Mexico. How you doing, my friend? Hey, Chad. How you doing? Barbarian Kung Fu. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Brett Bottomley. Yeah, don't worry. We'll tread carefully when we get there. Don't you worry, Brett. Don't you worry. No, I think we already said hi to Nauman. Yeah. Brian LCS, great to have you here. All right. We'll try to go a little bit faster. Now, Bill, this next one here. Let me just say this, Bill. These stories are not fun reads to me. They're very engrossing in one sense, but man, it takes a lot of mental power to get through these because he has such a deep and profound way of exploring the human condition.
Right.
And this one here just goes bananas. And his vocabulary is A1. His word choice, amazing. But boy, this one here is just weird. It's bizarre as heck. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I'll start off with this, right?
Okay.
This here it introduces another character here, a couple characters. I think her name is Astra. And this guy here, Daryl, the clown, right? And they're part of a carnival playing somewhere nearby a swamp.
Ayla,
probably
right?
Citrus.
Ayla Prentice. Anyway. Astrid's not till later, right? I don't think Astrid's in yet. It's Ayla Prentice, though. Acrobat.
I don't think actors. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I confused those two. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Right. So the clown here is, well, okay. The carnival owner and the girl. What was her name again?
Ayla Prentice.
Ayla. Right. Ayla. They supposedly they have a relationship, but the owner thinks that she's having a romantic relationship with the clown, right? Mm-hmm. So the carnival owner is always putting him down and always just being nasty to him, right? And he has like a henchman, like a strong guy. What was his name? Ty or something like that?
I don't remember his name.
Trag.
That's right.
The circus strongman.
Garvey was the carnival owner, right?
Trag.
Yeah.
Right. So Ayla goes out to look for Daryl, but Daryl is very depressed and suicidal. And unfortunately, he has a gun and he has a note. He stops the car by the road there, goes into the swamp, and commits suicide. Heavy stuff. All right, for a comic book, very, very heavy stuff. Right?
Yep.
Okay. And of course, Man-Thing, he feels the utter despair and depression that the clown is feeling. So he goes over there, but too late to stop the suicide, but picks him up, and something in him clicks that needs to be buried or put to rest.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you see him being carried here.
Right. But Richard Rory thinks that Man-Thing did something to him. Yeah.
Yeah. They haven't seen him yet close up. So Richard Rory thinks that, oh my God, the Man-Thing killed him,
Right.
When nothing can be further from the truth. Right. But then right at the end, this is when it gets really weird. Right at the end, the spirit of Daryl comes up. Now, at this point, I think the carnival owner and Trag have also tracked him down, right?
Yeah.
So they're all there together.
For Ayla too, yeah.
His spirit rises. Looking for Ayla, right? His spirit rises and says, "Oh, now I have all the players for the last show." Right? And this background comes up with I think a carnival or something, and that's where this issue ends. Really strange stuff, heavy and strange at the same time.
Yeah, I think
you want to take 6.
Like I said, I like Gerber's writing, but really, he tried to push novel length ideas into comic books, and it came off sometimes as really weird or a punch in the face. You were just hit by something so quick because he just didn't have. He was really trying to discuss things that the length of a comic book just didn't lend itself to. So,
agreed.
So yes, the next one. By
the way, Mike Klug is doing the art now. By the way, Bill.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Cover and art.
Great stuff.
The critics have to determine the fate of Daryl's soul based upon, the acting job, because the people who are alive now in the swamp, they have to act out Daryl's life to the approval or disapproval of the critics. He had so it kind of does a flashback, tells you through his life. He had overbearing parents. He was bullied a lot, couldn't defend himself from bullies. At 16, his father died and he inherited a lot of money. He was laughing at the funeral, and so sent to a psychologist where they're like, you've got some issues. But he essentially wanted to join the carnival, and because he had money and he could pay money, Garvey kind of let him join the carnival. Sure, you can be a clown, you can do whatever you want. And Ayla played it up, or at least it seemed that she played it up to be romantically interested in him, to keep that money flowing. But I think ultimately Daryl found out that wasn't the case, and that was the primary driver to his decision to take his own life. The critics are about to destroy his soul. I think Man-Thing intervenes. Ayla ultimately feels guilty about her role and everything, and she expresses her love for Daryl, and that kind of is redeeming, and the critics determine that his soul can go to paradise, whatever area that would be, versus being damned.
And he finally has a smile at the end.
That's right.
The smile comes out of the corpse.
Yep.
And that is sort of like the indication that he was justified. And
right.
And he finally got what he wanted, Again, this is Bill, really strange way of bringing the point across, right? I mean, it's sort of a menagerie, caught up in an enigma. It's really odd, really strange. You have to really connect a lot of dots here. And that's Gerber. I mean, he makes you work for the story. He really does. This is not, it's very dialogue heavy and very emotionally heavy. So be ready. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Give me a second here. I'll bring up my notes for the next one. But I'm kind of glad that was over, because that was rough to read. I mean, that was emotionally wrenching, shall we say? I think we got back to the schist stuff here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's 7. Yeah. So that's one. And that was a big part of it too, right? Kind of what was going on. You have to remember, especially with Gerber, he's very much a writer of the times. And during those times, you had the energy crisis, the oil crisis going on. And because of that, Schist determines that it's no longer financially viable to build an airport. So he wants to pursue his first passion. I like this issue, but it is kind of silly, to search for the fountain of youth, right? So he and Hargood, I think it was, they're searching in the Everglades. While this is happening, Man-Thing is attacked by some strange conquistadors, and because
still he gets in period costumes, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. He gets too close to the village of La Hacienda, right? Which is where the Fountain of Youth is at.
La Hacienda.
Turns out that's where it's at. Yeah. I think Ruth and Ayla leave. They're leaving town. Richard Rory gets a job at the local radio station. And the conquistador, he douses Man-Thing with Fountain of Youth fire that burns him. And I think at the end of this issue, Schist is kind of closing in on. Yes, with the Fountain of Youth water. Yeah. I think Schist is closing in on the location of La Hacienda.
Yep. That's right. Excellent. Now, one thing you left out, the hand. Remember the hand?
Oh, yeah. When he gets doused with it, it hits his hand, and he gets a human looking hand. Very, very good. Yes. That's important to the next issue.
That's important. Yeah.
Yes.
That's important, because now this is the first time, I think, maybe in the previous, but the first time we see any part of him being somewhat human. And now they know that, because there's theories that he was, an alien or, some kind of monster. And now they know that he was once human, right? So that's important. And right. So but he's outside the La Hacienda, and he's seen by Schist and Harwood.
Correct.
And of course they're right by La Hacienda, so they try to run him over with that. What it was, like an airboat or something? What was, whatever that was?
Yeah, like a hovercraft.
Hovercraft. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that it starts to go on fire. So Harwood's like, get away from there. the thing's gonna explode. Oh, we're gonna be stuck here.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the man thing it starts to like go after Wickham, and he falls into something and dies. I forgot what happened there. But they see that La Hacienda there.
That's the next.
Is that the next issue? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're getting ahead of us, Roger.
I should be talking about this one, shouldn't I?
Yes.
Shouldn't I be talking about this one?
You should, yes.
You did 7. You did 7. Man, you're mixing me up, Bill. You're mixing me up.
So that's number 8, yes.
So there's number 8, right. So that's right. Wickham dies later on. That's true, right. But so the man thing is going back to La Hacienda.
Wickham died during that issue, but you were still on 7.
I was still on 7.
Now you're
I'm
showing
sorry.
8.
Right.
Yes. Wickham died on 8. Yeah.
Now I'm showing 8. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So you're right. It is, but now he's going. The man thing's going back to La Hacienda to get away from these guys, and the people inside are like rethinking. Because at first they were like, well, he's a monster, and they're trying to get rid of him. Now they're thinking maybe we can help him. Maybe he was here to be helped. So they take him to what are they? The Fathers? Is that what they were?
Yes, that is the name. Yep, the Fathers.
Because now that they see,
we think based on his hand, we think we can research a way to try to restore him to a man.
Right. Exactly. That's right. So
right.
that's
so
what
they
they're
hook
thinking.
him up to the fountain water, right? And they're taking the muck out of him and putting the fountain water in him. He's strapped down, to like essentially like an.
It's sort of a transfusion. It's sort of a water transfusion.
That's right. Yes.
He starts to return. He starts kind of half man, half human, half man thing, right?
Yep.
But Wickham and Schiss, they scale the wall and they sneak into the chamber where this is happening. Man, oh man. And now he's like, Schiss, is like talking to them. He's like, I want to broker a deal with the Fathers.
Yeah. Offers a business proposal.
Yeah, a business proposal, right? He's like, hey, listen, this will make you millions. This water, just give me some. I'll take it out, and I'll get the investors, and everybody will be rich, right?
Yeah.
And they're like considering it. The Fathers are considering it, right?
Well, they're at least pretending to.
Or pretending to. So they give him a little vial of water, and he drinks it, right?
You're right.
And but he starts like convulsing, and he's starting to change his countenance is shriveled and kind of gnarled,
withered. Yes.
Yeah, kind of withered, and he was like, "What have you done to me?
Cover.
What have you done to?" Yeah, that's right. That's him right there. And apparently they say, "Well, you didn't let us even tell you this, but you're not supposed to drink it. You're supposed to bathe in it." That's right. And they're the ones who drank it, and then they come out and they look exactly the same.
Yep. His greed betrayed him.
And his greed betrayed him. Yeah, exactly. Right. And like I said, and Wickham fell. Was chased. Now, Man Thing. Now, so he wants to destroy the Man Thing, and
correct.
Because now he's like, what do I got to lose? I'm messed up or whatever. Yeah. So the Man Thing, remember, is half human. So he puts up a pretty good battle. I think he's a little stronger and everything than normal too.
Yeah. Well, he takes Lorena prisoner. She's one of her and the Capitana, the ones that brought Man Thing in to help. Schiss takes Lorena prisoner, and that's when the Man Thing starts fighting with him. And unfortunately, the solution of muck that was withdrawn from him shatters and covers his body again and restores him ultimately back to the form of the Man Thing.
Yep. That's right. This guy cannot catch a break. Ted Salad.
He can't. No. If it weren't for bad luck, he'd have no luck at all.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But Schist now is now with the restored man thing. He grabs him and he's fearful. So not he doesn't burn. He blows up essentially. Just incinerates. Yep. So yep. That's the end of Fascist.
That's right.
And the fathers are thinking maybe we should try again, but they figure, you know what, we just better leave him alone.
Yeah.
So he just
and better or safe, more safe for our secret as well if we leave him alone.
Right. Yeah, because if they turn him to human, they can't let him go anyway, because then he would let them know where they're at.
Yep. Yep, that's right.
Okay. A few other people come in here. Let's see. Ryan, Magic Lasso, welcome.
Cool.
If I can hit the little thing. Hey, guys, how you doing? And my buddy Micah, Graphic Man, is here. Great to have you, my friend. Great show on Wednesday nights. And my throat is just like dry as a bone for some reason today. I'm not in the desert either.
You got no excuse.
You'll get this one. All right. Take it away, my friend.
Beautiful, Mike.
Yeah, this is a good one. I like this one.
Yeah. Beautiful plume cover. Boy, he was good.
Beautiful.
So this was Ezekiel and Maybell. I think was it Turk or Torque, something like that?
Torque.
Okay. They lived in the swamp.
Yeah.
Maybell thinks that her husband Zeke is neglecting her in favor of his dog, aptly named Dog.
Dog.
So she's very jealous of this dog. But at any rate, when she sees the man thing, she has a heart attack. Zeke scares him off with his shotgun, and he has to leave the swamp to go get a doctor. They don't have a phone, they don't have anything. They're definitely very, very rural. So you have a lot of rural people, alligators, and snakes in swamps. That's just the way it is, from what I understand.
I see them all the time out there, Bill. All the time.
Yeah, exactly. So on his way, he's attacked by some swamp trees. Zeke is, and Man Thing rescues him. He also rescues him from gators, from snakes, and then ultimately he saves him from like these animated skeletons of people who have died in the swamp. He passes out during one of these last altercations, and Man Thing has to carry him the rest of the way, or partially. He has to start carrying him until he awakens. Right. So I think that's the end of that one. In 10, the Man Thing battles like a Medusa-like apparition of Maybell, the wife. She gets when Medusa,
did you say that Maybell,
huh? What's that?
Did you say that Maybell had a heart attack and died? Did you say that already?
No, I don't think she's had a heart attack.
Maybell had a heart attack and died.
Well, she had a heart attack.
Yeah, she did it in the first issue.
Well, yeah, he went to go get a doctor. She didn't necessarily die at that point, though. He went to go get a doctor to help treat her.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Well, I guess she didn't die, but
right.
Those things came out of her because of
correct.
Her
right. Whether it was her passing or not, because ultimately she is with us later on. So this was like some ghost or apparition of Maybell. Her venom, I think, for Zeke and Dog, because it's kind of silly, but yes, she was like a conduit for some of these demonic apparitions, which Man Thing has to battle. But when this was defeated, she was revived. Maybell was revived, and she thought Zeke had abandoned her. Right? She didn't know he went off to go get a doctor.
She thought he was.
And when he wakes up in the swamp with Man Thing, he starts talking to Man Thing, as you'll see a lot of people do. Richard Rory does too, even though he can't acknowledge anything you're saying. It's kind of like, a cowboy talking to his horse kind of scenario where they use that opportunity to give some backstory on whatever they want to do. So he tells his story to Man-Thing. They both go to a diner so he can call a doctor. He doesn't have a nickel, and the locals start harassing him because, kind of like Roger does to some of the swamp folks, they harass them because they're country and swamp folks and things like that. Man-Thing starts beating the hell out of them, but finally the proprietor of the diner is like, hey, you can use the phone. Here you go. Here's a nickel or whatever it costs back then.
Die now.
Yeah, exactly. And now they do that. So that's all he needed to do. So he's heading back with Man-Thing. They're fighting more ghosts. And Man-Thing ultimately beats him, but I think he gets knocked out or unconscious or something like that.
Yep.
Zeke goes and finally checks on Maybelle, and he's attacked last time by this soul-stealing demon. And ultimately, his loyal companion, the one that Maybelle hated more than anything, Dog, ends up sacrificing himself to save Zeke. And Maybelle ultimately revives at the end without all of these demons accompanying her.
Yeah, very well. I really did like this story a lot.
It was good.
I'm not playing up to Brett Bottomley here. It kind of reminded me a little bit of. It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Evil Dead. I don't know if you saw that movie, Bill.
I did not.
Where there's a evil entity, and it essentially it revives dead people and tries to kill the living. It kind of had that vibe to me about it. But look what Brett Bottomley says here. Speaking to the nature of love, the nature of resentment, of redemption, Dog was Plug's idea, and I believe the greatest comic character ever created, period. I agree. I agree to a good degree. This is exactly what that is.
I agree to a little bit, to a certain degree, because really the opportunity was for Maybelle to get redemption, and that never occurred. So I'm not so sure about that part, but it was definitely. I don't know. Yeah, she didn't make any peace with Dog. She hated Dog till the end, and even at the end, she wasn't appreciative of him. So I'm not sure about the redemption part, but definitely love. Yes,
I think she was appreciative of him at the end. I think she realized that Dog sacrificed himself for her, even though she hated him.
I think he had to look into
maybe
that.
Didn't come across as well as it could have, but I think.
Yeah, I didn't get that.
I think she did find redemption. I think she did. But anyway, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Fair enough.
Hey, listen, with Gerber, it can be interpreted so many different ways. That honestly, it can be rather convoluted what he's trying to tell you sometimes. So sometimes there's a surface story, and then there's a much, much deeper underlayer. True. And sometimes I figure it out okay, and sometimes I'm not sure. So, okay. So here, let me see if I remember this one. As I recall, there's Rory. Rory is involved here, and he's like, oh, woe is me. And he's back in the swamp out there,
right?
And he sees a girl.
She's
going through the swamp, and he was like, I think he was like thinking that there might be there can't be anybody out here, and then there she is, and he literally trips over her, and he's like, oh, that's the old Rory Luck there, and she's running away from this guy in this. Yeah, I tell you, it's amazing. It's amazing that part of the swamp. It's like a metropolis, So she's being chased by. I think the woman is named Sybil, right?
Correct.
And she's being chased by this guy wearing this metal mask with
Mask.
kind of a grotesque kind of look to it.
Yep.
Mask or helmet or something. Yeah. And he's part of the oh, by the way, she was waiting for her brother to pick her up from a
dance.
of Liberation. That's right.
Yeah.
From
a dance class or dance recital or something.
Strange name there.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's right. Because
all the demons I know are liberating. You know. That's what demons do, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't think anyone
does. Anyway, so she was kidnapped by these guys, and
she has escaped them.
And she has escaped them, and now she. I mean, I think Rory takes her back to Citrusville, right. And they get a room in a hotel. And no, they're not.
Rory's a player, right?
No, they're not doing anything. But then they burst in there. But the Man-Thing, of course, is nearby.
Yeah.
And he confronts them, and I don't know if he kills them, but I think he disarms them, and
he burns them and destroys their weapons, right? And they're forced to unmask, and that's when it seems out there nearly all of them are scarred, and their leader just happens to be Sybil's brother, right? The one she was waiting to pick her up. Yeah. And they're all Vietnam veterans who ultimately couldn't get jobs. And this was like their way of protesting the situation within which they have found themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found this very odd. Come on, bub. Come on. I found this one very odd. Because it just seemed like the motivations of these guys didn't make sense with, their actions,
Right.
But I think Gerber's trying to get, across a very social, political point here. And it just, I don't know. It didn't work for me.
And that's my point with a lot of his writing. I think he has some valid themes that he wants to explore. He doesn't have the time to develop and lead up to properly execute that in several of these. They just come off as forced.
Right. You want to take Song Cry? This is another really weird one.
It is. Yeah, it is. It wasn't one of my favorites, but it was okay. This was Gil Kane cover. Buscema does the interior art on this one. But it's about Brian Lazarus, who's a writer, and he's being attacked, or at least you think he's being attacked, by spirits of people who want to just beat him into paying debts that he owes. Man-Thing, of course, is attracted to all sorts of strong emotions, whether they be hatred, fear, in some cases love, right? I mean, empathy, like that. That's why he's almost like a guardian of Richard Rory, because he has sort of an empathic connection to Richard Rory. But at any rate, he's attracted to this, and he defeats these spirits that are attacking this writer, and realizes that they just kind of wisp into nothingness when he attacks them. Lazarus kind of wanders around aimlessly and is found by Sybil. So the connection back to the previous issue. And she brings him to the motel while she's waiting for her parents to come pick up her and I think her brother. It's almost like everything's cool with her and her brother now, So sorry about kidnapping you and almost killing you. Don't worry about it.
Sorry about kidnapping you.
Yeah, exactly.
All forgiven.
Yeah. And the spirits return again in the motel room. And again, they're fought off by Man-Thing. Sybil ultimately, permanently defeats them by showing this writer, Brian, that she cares about him and that she recognizes him for the good person that he is. and that ultimately kind of defeats the spirits. It's really, in my opinion, an attempt to dive into depression, anxiety, mental anguish, but kind of a strange way to go about it. But I think that's pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. The way I looked at it, right, that he had a life that he could live, but he chose to dwell on the negative aspects of it, and that got him into this deep depression that manifested itself in these, phantoms or whatever it was. And Sybil was kind of his savior. I just thought that it was a little bit too preachy, in that sense, and a little bit too quickly resolved, If I've dealt with depression, it's not that easy. Trust me, it is not that easy to just magically go away like that. Right. But again, he only has so much time to deal with this, right? So I get that he had to come up with a solution that was a little bit, abrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why. So I think he would have been better served to probably analyze some of his potential topics a little bit with a bit more scrutiny before writing about them. But, you take some good with some bad. I think he was just a great writer. I just think in some cases he tried to put too much into a comic book. And I think he kind of sometimes you got to take a step back and determine that the medium is the medium. This is what it is. Here's the type of story that can be told within time frames and length and things like that, and be respectful of that. And I think sometimes he fought against that. Oftentimes, not oftentimes, sometimes unsuccessful.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. Yeah. Certainly, I think he's brilliant, but it's even in that brilliance, he's restricted by the medium, So
right.
All right, let's keep going.
All right, let's do it.
So this one here, number 13. Now we got Gil Kane covers here. I think still Buscema.
It is.
I'm not sure. I think at some point Mooney goes in here. Yeah.
That's correct.
So here it's Port Everglades. I've been to Port Everglades. That's right. Fill in. I've been to Port Everglades, Bill. Port Everglades is nowhere near a swamp. Okay, it's like 30
I see it.
miles
I would know.
edge
I would have no idea.
Right. It's over on the East Coast on Fort Lauderdale. All right. So, but anyway, he meanders down there, and he's like these guys are arguing. He's like, well, it's the captain and the owner of the shipping company, I guess.
Right.
And he's like, I don't want to. The captain's like, I don't think this is a good idea. Taking me into the Bermuda Triangle. Bad things happen there. And he's like, don't be silly. You're, that's stuff of legend and all this.
Right.
And Man-Thing is attracted to him, and they're putting all this equipment into the ship. And he's actually in between these crates, and he gets caught up in the net, and he's loaded onto the ship down into the cargo hold.
Yep.
So now he's no longer in a swamp; he's in a ship.
That's
right.
That's correct.
And this is an expedition by what was her name?
Maura Spinner,
who is who again is Maura Spinner, right? Who is a very liberated kind of woman and very take charge, and she wants to go to the Bermuda Triangle to explore.
Right. She's a scientist.
The phenomenon, et cetera, over there. And she has all kinds of equipment.
Yep.
Yeah, scientifically, yeah. Right. And she has this compulsion to do this, a real drive to do this, which is kind of odd, right? But we'll find out why later. So now there's this, the sailors are seeing there's this commotion down in the hold. So they go down there and, or I think Mora goes down there.
Yes, and she gets burned.
And the Man-Thing is drying out. Now he's far away from the swamp.
Right.
But he grabs her foot and burns her a bit. And they want to the captain wants to put him over the side of the ship, but she's like, no.
Right. He's got him in the net, ready to drop him into the ocean.
Yeah. he's like, no, this is a good chance to study. We don't know what he is. This is a once in a lifetime. Obviously scientific thinking, right? They're always trying to figure out what things are. When that occurs, all of a sudden, this old time ship comes out of the sky.
Yeah.
And
pirate ship.
These pirates are starting to fall onto the ship that was what was the name of the ship? I forgot what
it was commissioned.
Marietta, was it?
Was it? I don't remember the name of it.
I don't remember the name, but yeah. And
but this is Captain
and
Fate.
again, he attacks the crew.
Yeah.
Captain Fate, right. They attack the crew, and they are there because they want to grab Mora. That's who they're looking for.
Right.
Because he says that that's their queen.
That's right.
And she's like, what? What are you talking about?
So anyway, they take her and Man-Thing.
Right. Up into their ship, which is going up into space or somewhere.
Yep, that's right.
And they throw Man-Thing fights a lot of the sailors, and they create like what do they call that? A phalanx.
Yeah.
And they push him over the side.
Right. And he
starts freezing.
Freezes in space.
Right. Freezes
and he
as
is no
he's
more.
falling. He's falling. Right.
Yeah.
All right. You want to take the second part?
Oh, well, he is not no more because he's in the next issue. But yes. This one, I think this is Alcala with the interior art.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So Man-Thing crashes.
You're right.
Yeah, Man-Thing crashes into the ocean where he's revived because of the water, right? And
Hi, Chris.
Captain Fate, the ghost pirate captain, if you will, he says that Mora was their queen in the late 1700s when they were pirates, and they were looking for a tower that had this cache of incredible treasure. So they found it. And there's this creature called Cords. At least that's how I pronounce it. Maybe it's Cordes, but I'd say Cords.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they awaken. And he says, all right, you can have all the treasure if you trade me for a mate. So I said, well, we happen to have one of those. That's our queen here. There you go. And there's our treasure. And they took off, right? Well, she wasn't having any of that. And she stabs him with her cutlass. Essentially says, get the hell off of me. And she cursed the Serpent's Crown was the name of their ship. She curses that crew that, that they will never know rest. They'll never reach a port. And that curse is granted by Cords. And Mora is made like immortal by her. So that's why she's later on, hundreds of years later, she's a scientist. Doesn't necessarily know this past, but her spirit is living on in other ways through other people. But that's why she's drawn to this area as well.
Yeah.
And Man-Thing finds this tower because it's now under the ocean. And when he falls down from the ship in space, not the spaceship, but the ship in space, he finds this ocean and he touches Cords, and that kind of makes him awaken, and the tower surfaces again. And the crew, the space crew, attacks the tower, and Captain Fate is shot by Mora. Not by Mora, no, she's shot by the ship's captain, the hired ship's captain. And Man-Thing's fighting the crew. Yeah. Ultimately, I think that Mora decides to honor the agreement that was made hundreds of years before and goes with Cords, and they and the tower descend back down under the ocean.
Yep. Got it. Yeah. This is one of those stories where it was kind of middle of the road for me. It had a lot of winding out. Like at first they wanted the Man-Thing to fight Cordes, but you know, they just had like a haphazard kind of plan there. They didn't really they didn't really think this through too well. I mean, it was never going to end well for them, essentially.
Correct.
So
yeah, I liked it a little bit more than middle of the road because anything that has pirates in it is in my wheelhouse, I think.
Yeah. No, that part was cool. Yeah, that part was cool. This is odd because I don't think the Man-Thing was actually in this issue.
Number 16.
It was a Man-Thing candle. So what happened is this girl, I think her name was Saint Cloud.
Yeah, he was sort of in it, but in it.
Yeah,
I mean, he was in it, as in you could see images of him in it, but was it really him or was it a hallucination?
It wasn't really him.
That's open to interpretation. Right.
Yeah, she buys this candle in this candle shop that is in the shape of the Man-Thing.
Right.
Because so a friend of hers, which is actually, wants to have a relationship with her, told her to go there.
Chuck.
Get this candle. She brings it back home. Huh? Chuck. Right. Chuck. She brings it back home, lights it up, and starts to have these hallucinations, of all kinds of weird things happening.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this is somewhat semi-autobiographical for Gerber, but please continue.
Yeah, I was going to say it kind of has that feel to it, So she had a date with her upstairs neighbor, I think Jeremy. Is that his name?
Yep, it is Jeremy. He's a blind guy.
He's blind.
Mm-hmm.
So at first she's like, no, I just want to be alone. But then these weird hallucinations start happening to her. And so she's like, well, she goes up there and says, these things are happening like I'm at like somewhere else. I'm in a swamp and all this. She starts having flashbacks of when the Man-Thing was Ted Sallis, and they had a relationship and all that. Just bizarre stuff, right? So she goes and gets that Jeremy guy because she thinks that if it was she wasn't sure if it was real or not, but she thinks it may be a dream. But she gets the guy down here to her apartment, and he starts inhaling the fumes or whatever from the candle, and all of a sudden he's thinking he can see, but he can't. He's actually hallucinating.
Right.
It's weird. It's a very weird kind of medium or vector for the story here. And I think Chuck was sort of like, well, I'm going to go in there because at certain time it'll take effect, and I'll go in there and rescue her.
Right. Chuck paid the candle maker to make this hallucinogenic candle. Right.
To make the candle. Yeah.
Right. So he could save.
When Chuck gets there, Jeremy and St. Cloud are about to jump out the window because they think they're trying to escape or something, but it's not a window to them. It's like part of another place.
Right.
So he goes in there and he says, no, don't go out. Don't go out there. It's not real. But Jeremy is like, gets in a fight with him. And they start tussling. Let's see. And Chuck keeps saying, you only love people who are like, freaks or something like that. And that's when the Man-Thing appears. And now Chuck is breathing in the stuff.
Correct.
And so Chuck thinks it's the Man-Thing. The Man-Thing grabs Chuck and burns him because he's fearful.
Right.
But remember, this is all a hallucination, right? But actually, what happened is that Chuck fell onto the candle. It wasn't the Man-Thing. It was the candle that he fell on and burned him. And so again, the Man-Thing was really never in this issue. It was all hallucinations.
Possibly. I think Gerber does leave it open to interpretation as to whether or not the candle burned Chuck or the Man-Thing burned Chuck. I think he does kind of put the onus on the reader at that point at the end. But yes, for all intents and purposes, you could say that the Man-Thing in his was there and maybe in ethereal form, if any. And I think one part when they try to put a little bit, by they, I mean Gerber tries to put a little bit of backstory with Ted Salas, where St. Cloud was essentially like a thief, right? And she meets up with him, and she's very street savvy, and he isn't. And I think he uses that relationship and the dynamic between the two of them and the honesty that seems to exist emotionally and intellectually between them as a way to question his involvement, his being Ted's involvement with the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, that's true. And she's like the exact opposite. She's and she's got a mind of her own, but she's much more in tune with the how the environment would be affected and how the people will be affected. And he was at that time not so much that. You're right. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Very common themes.
All right.
In this issue, yes.
Yes, very common themes. Yeah, absolutely.
In the series.
This is the one where he starts hammering it over the head. With the what he believes is society really trying to indoctrinate the masses in the other way,
Right. Yeah.
This is 1970s, guys. I mean, this is not today. This is going on even back then, right? You want to take this one? I'm going to get a glass of water. I'll be right back. Okay.
No problem. Yep. So that's Gil Kane, John Buscema with the interiors. There's an artist called what is his name? I think it's Star Spangler is like his stage name, but he's a musician, right? An artist, and he cancels a tour that he's going to be on so he can find the filthiest place around, which happens to be Citrusville Swamp, to write a new concept album that he's working on. He's found by this girl named Astrid. I remember Roger had mentioned Astrid before. Here's where Astrid appears. She's fleeing her grandfather, who is the Mad Viking. It gets better, folks. And the Mad Viking is angry because of a lack of macho men in the world. And so he took on this persona to essentially try to battle the hippies and the sissies, in his opinion, and the druggies, and put a backbone and a spine back into manhood in America today. But she likes to date some of those hippies and artists and stuff like that. So they're oftentimes at odds with one another. So she's fleeing him. And I think that she's trying to get away from him. Man-Thing is on the scene, but he's not interested in doing a whole lot. So he's kind of more in an observational role. The Mad Viking attacks several of the people around the rocker guy. What's his name again? Star Spangler. And he ends up killing Star Spangler.
Right.
Yes. I think that's his name. His stage name is Star Spangler, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah, believe it or not, it is.
Ultimately, Man-Thing ends up burning the Mad Viking's hands, and Astrid uses that as an opportunity to skedaddle and get out of there.
Yep. Yeah, this is getting. Yeah, this is like. This guy, the grandfather, I mean, who 65 years old, yet he's so strong, he can throw these barrels. And he's a piece of work. He really is a piece of work.
It's funny. But yes, I think the art of subtlety at this point is getting lost.
It's lost, totally. Totally lost.
And maybe he sees the writing on the wall as far as the series is concerned. And he says, I have some themes and some topics that I wanted to introduce, and I'm going to introduce them and hasten the pace and the effect. I don't know, but there's definitely a seismic shift in how he introduces some of these themes.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, agreed. But remember, he was also doing the giant size, the GS ones, the GS quarterlies. So,
and we'll do those.
So those
at the end of this run, too. By the way,
afterwards. So, all right. So here, by the way, there is no Citrusville, as far as I know, in Florida.
They've destroyed it, Roger. It's a cover up.
If it existed, it's gone. It's
the Gators have taken over, effectively taken over that.
Yeah, that's the Gators and the extremists apparently have taken over. But so here, they know that they find the little hut with the half dead young people, half are alive and beat up and the whole bit. So now they know that the Viking guy, did it because there's an axe stuck into the Star Splender's.
That's right.
There. Yeah, not subtle at all. But since his hands are burned, he can't hold anything. Yeah. And then there's a new dynamic. The Selbys. Olivia Selby is the mother, and is it Carolyn Selby?
It is Carolyn.
Yeah, Carol Selby is the daughter. Now, Olivia Selby finds a textbook of her daughters and sees that there's references to communism and
sex ed being taught,
and sex ed and all this stuff, and she's like she's beside herself, and she wakes up the husband at 3 a.m. Says, we got to do something about this, and he's like, I'll go back to bed, but she, again, she just can't let it go. Right. So there's going to be a town meeting that next day because of all the murders and everything that was going on. Let's see what else. Okay. So these locals meet the Man-Thing out in the road somewhere, and I think he's dried out or something. Something happened. He's dried out, so he's kind of weak. And they throw him in the back of a Jeep, and one of the guys has an idea. He says, "We'll take him to the water sewage plant, and we'll throw him into a chemical vat, and that'll dissolve him."
Right.
So they do that. While all this is going on, they're looking for the Viking guy.
Yep.
The
vigilantes are
the grandfather.
Yeah, the Mad Viking.
The Mad Viking, right? Exactly.
Yep.
And while that's happening, the Man-Thing's essentially dead. Now parts of him are floating out to this river. But the Viking guy, during the meeting, Olivia Selby gets up and she starts saying that, she won't even let the guy talk about what they're there for. She's like, they got banners, about moral correctness and all this stuff, and how, you're poisoning our kids' minds, etc. And then the Viking guy appears and he starts saying, yeah, these guys are wusses. These guys are sissies. You're not real men. Women should have women's roles. And, the very conservative, but very, very extreme kind of example here.
All right.
And Richard Rory gets whacked because he's there to cover the story from his boss.
Correct. For the radio station.
But he can't take it. He goes up there and he says, what are you guys, crazy? People need, to have different aspects. Information should be out there. They should make their own choices. Well, the Viking ain't going to have it. So they knock him out, and he joins forces with the Selby and all the other moral correctness people, and they head over to the high school.
Right, the Mad Viking does, yeah.
Where they walk through Well, they want to burn all the books that have the stuff that they consider, ungodly.
Right. Oh, and that was the first Jim Mooney interior, by the way, in 17.
This is the first, Jim Mooney, correct. Yeah,
in
correct.
17. So in 18, Man-Thing is now he's a foam creature, but still a creature. Olivia Selby's daughter, Carol, she's confused as to why the mob is wanting to burn these books. The Mad Viking throws their science teacher through a window, injuring him. Richard Rory gets fired from his job, and he and Astrid are trying to talk to the mob, talk them out of burning the books and committing acts of violence. The Mad Viking is attacked by Man-Thing, I think. So they're burning the books, right? I think that the Mad Viking kills Astrid, I think. He strikes her so hard that he ends up killing her. Isn't that what happened?
That's right.
And they're burning the books.
She falls on the ground and cracks her head open. Yeah.
Right. And Man-Thing appears in chemical form and kills the Mad Viking. And then ultimately returns to a swamp form. The mob ends up fleeing. And Man-Thing, Richard Rory, and this is sort of important, Carol Selby leaves with those two. She says, I don't want to be here with these crazy people anymore. Can you take me with you? But I think another important thing is that this chemical process that happened to the Man-Thing, first becoming this foam creature and then reverting back to the Man-Thing, it affects his ability to stay away from the swamp for prolonged periods of time without diminishing his power.
That's right. And now he's self-sufficient. He actually can feed off himself and his waste, which sounds weird, but that's what it is. So we have a big change of direction here, really, because now we're out of the swamps and we're going to Atlanta. Okay?
Yay, that's right.
Richard Rory and
we're on the road.
Let me say hi to a few people here. I heard Circumstances, welcome. And Christina Black Adams, welcome. So now Richard Rory, Carol, and the Man-Thing in tow in the back of the van are driving up to they want to get away from Citrusville. And Richard Rory's like, well, we'll drop them off at Okefenokee Swamp. Man-Thing's like, you won't move.
They want to go. Yeah.
They're like, what am I going to do? I got to take them. So they take them up to right south of Atlanta, and they get a motel room, separate rooms. Okay?
Allegedly.
But when they're in there, well, Bill, you dirty dog.
Well, Richard's the dirty dog, as we'll find out.
That's true. Well, but he tries. He tries.
Yeah.
So while they're doing that, the Man-Thing, while they're in the hotel room, the Man-Thing gets out because there's this villain, I guess, for lack of a better term, named the Scavenger. Right? Scavenger?
Yep, that is right.
Who attacks? Yeah, that's him, right? Who attacks? What was her name? Colleen, I think the name was. Yeah, and initially it was Colleen, right?
Was it?
And kisses her. What was it? Colleen first, and then later Carol. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, anyway, so that brings the Man-Thing over there, and they start battling, and all the neighbors come out and everything. So now they can see who the Scavenger is and what he did. So he flees because he doesn't want to be known, I guess.
Right.
And then now back at the hotel, Richard Rory's looking for the Man Thing. He's like, Man Thing, man,
Yep.
where are you, Man Thing? Can't
Nowhere
find
to
him.
be found.
He's gone. He's like, oh no, what do I do? Oh man. So the scavenger couldn't finish his job with, I think it was Colleen. So he finds this waitress in a donut shop, and he has to feed. And what he does is that he extracts all the flesh, all the marrow, and just a bag of bones falls, almost like a vampire, but he just sucks them all the body.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Very vampiric in what he does.
Right. So so he does that. He's now okay, I guess, fed for a while. So the Man Thing goes back to the motel, and of course frightens the heck out of the hotel manager and the people there. So the manager's like, Rory's like, listen, can we just stay for the night? I'll put him in the van. He won't bother anybody. And the manager's like, no, you're out of here. And then at the end, the scavenger comes back to get the Man Thing, and he starts battling him. And the Man Thing, no, he doesn't do that yet, right? But he takes off his mask because he starts talking to the people, because he's like, yeah, you want to see what I look like? And he takes off his mask, and he's just like an Adonis.
Adonis,
like
yes. Cursed with
a beautiful man, I think, or a pretty man. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And most people would say that's what I want to be, but you'll find out why he doesn't want that. But then the Man Thing grabs his face and scars him.
Right.
And so he's like, now, ooh, excited. And you're like, what? Yeah. It's weird, but that's where this issue ends.
Well, real quickly,
this is a major rug pull.
In issue 19, that's where we find out that Carol is 16 years old, and Rory's actually committed a crime by kidnapping her, by taking her across state lines.
Yeah. She tells him, hey, I'm only 17. And he's like, what? I'm going to jail. I'm going to jail.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, you want to do 20?
I was just going to say, I'll let you do this one, but I wanted to say that this cover is very misleading. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, it is big time. And that's Senior with that cover too, by the way.
Yeah, Ramita Senior. Yeah, real nice. But
so Scavenger's cursed, right? Everyone's kicked out of the motel. They get into a car crash with a demon who has what's called a nightmare box. Man Thing rescues them from the car crash. Richard Rory gets the nightmare box and gives it to Man Thing for like safekeeping or holding. He doesn't know what the heck it is, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
And then it cuts to where there's this guy, this painter named Paul Jennings, who's creating a painting for a newspaper of Man Thing. He's creating a painting of Man Thing for a newspaper. How about that? And he goes in to ask the question of the editor. I think it's Danielle Nicole. And she is like staring into this box with these rays coming out of her eyes. She's filling a nightmare box with energy from her eyes, right? Emotion or energy from her eyes. While this is happening, Man Thing is followed by some demons because he has this other nightmare box. And they try to get the box by pretending to be friends of Man Thing, right? And that doesn't work. So then they said, okay, we're going to take it by force, right? And so these demons are...
Plan B.
Exactly, because the demons were acting as in the form of Shang-Chi, the Thing. So that's kind of what Roger was referring to. Those characters aren't really in there. They are demons that are pretending to be those characters. And they do knock
he's met all of them before, so that's why they're made up like that.
Yeah. They do end up knocking the box out of his hands. and it gets picked up by some stranger, who is then later chased by the demons. But some stranger that we don't know at this point has that nightmare box.
Yep, excellent. Yeah, this is right near the end here. This is the last hurrah.
Yes.
The series lasted 22 issues. And number 22 is really something.
Yeah.
But yeah. So okay, like where Bill left off, now the police are coming in because there's obviously a lot of commotion. There's stuff happening all over the city, and the Man-Thing is trying to get out of there, and the police come up with this helicopter, and they're trying to take him down. It's not working, and he grabs the helicopter. The Man-Thing does, and he gets lifted up. I think one of the guys actually falls out. One of the police officers falls out.
Yep. And
he gets dropped, somewhere. This is outside the house of. Did you say about the doll people, the accountant guy?
No, that's this issue. Yeah, it's
okay.
Yeah, Roland.
Okay, so we meet the dolls, and he is an accountant for Thog.
That's
believe
correct.
It or not.
Yeah.
And his wife is like, he's like emotionally crippled, and she's leaving.
Elsbeth.
What was that?
Elsbeth.
Elsbeth, right? Elsbeth.
Yes.
That's a weird name, isn't it?
It is a weird name, yes. Well, Roland's not the most typical name either. So
true, but I do know a Roland, right? Anyway, so she's captured by the Scavenger, and he takes her to, I guess, his hideout or whatever that place is. Right, and now he explains his origin, right? Where
yes,
he essentially can't feel anything. He has no. He tries to kiss a girl, and he just doesn't feel anything. If he's hurt, it just regenerates back. He's got he's a perfect guy, physique and everything, but he can't feel anything. So for him, it doesn't do him any good because it doesn't matter. He gets nothing out of it.
Right.
Hey, Psychedelic, how you doing? Yeah, famous 2-in-1, right, with the Thing and Man-Thing. So he's telling her this origin, and he made a deal with Thog. It's very complicated, right, guys? But he made a deal with Thog that he can feel, but he has to take the emotions out of certain people.
Right.
And there are certain people that have to fill the nightmare boxes, and then there are certain people that are receptacles for those emotions. So it's a very cyclical thing there.
Yes.
And Thog is I think that's the next issue where he's building the thing there. But anyway, so while this is going on, the Man-Thing is attacked by the two guys from way back when, Clonus
and Mortak.
And what was the other guy's name? Mortak. Right. Mortak. Right. Because Thog is brought them in because they got caught up in these cocoons by Jennifer Kale, and now Thog is bringing them and releases them, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Clonus does some kind of blast and hits Man-Thing through his head and starts leaking stuff out.
Right. And that affects his mind and his memories. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So, things are now coming out that, he hadn't not known of before. But so, the Man-Thing is essentially, he's taken out essentially, right? And subdued. Yep. But then at the end, we now see Thog, which is that nether spawn guy, the red guy, and he talks about the plot to take over the universe, and it has
That's
to do
right.
with building this very precise tower. That's why he has the accountant. It has to be very precise.
Right.
Every box has to be filled and emptied and in a precise way.
Right.
But there's one box that's still out there by that mystery guy, right?
That's right.
And we don't know about what's happening. So now this comes up. I don't know, Bill, you want to take this one?
Sure.
This is break fourth wall stuff here.
Yeah. So Steve Gerber is writing a letter to the editor telling him why he can't be on the book anymore, allegedly. Right? Steve Gerber does this type of thing too. He's done this for fill-ins for Howard the Duck, where it's almost all textual with just a picture here and there, probably because they were late on the art, or probably that they couldn't get the story together quickly enough, so they just interjected that. So it's not the first time I've seen things like this from him, but it is definitely odd. He's saying that he was visited by Dakeem, who chose him to write about Man-Thing and his adventures, right? When Dakeem was killed by Clonus, I'm giving away because that's from one of the Giant Sides, but at any rate, it caused an eclipse in the realm of the god dogs, allowing Thog to escape. And Thog wants to take over the universe with a tower of nightmare boxes filled with emotional energy. The stolen box, the one that Man-Thing had knocked out of his hands that was stolen by the mysterious stranger, was actually delivered to Steve Gerber. Gerber was attacked by demons, and he was sucked into the box. He was in another dimension with Man-Thing, and they together toppled the Tower of Thog, if you will, through their coordination. Man-Thing incinerates Thog. Dakeem restores the universe to its natural order, and Steve Gerber is returned, of course, to his apartment in New York City. But that's kind of like an overview of it, and it's very text heavy throughout the entire issue. Yeah, because it's supposed to be a letter.
When he does the tower, he puts all the text on those pages. So yeah, it's, to me, Bill, I don't know what you think, but it seems to me like the end had to come rather abruptly.
Yeah.
So they came up with this mechanism because I think he had a little bit of a different plan. I don't think this was planned. I think this was I got to get it over with, and this is the only way I can do it.
Yeah, I think it came
real quickly, Bill. Let's go through the Giant.
Yeah, I think it came very abruptly. I don't think he knew even
Especially
the previous issue that it was going to happen. So,
yeah, I was looking through the letters pages just in case there was some clue to it. No, nothing. So I think there was I think the editor said, or the publisher, whoever said, it's time.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So. All right, so let's real quickly go through the Giant Size issues and we'll wrap up.
Okay. So, yeah. Continue from number.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say there are 5, and only usually one, except for number 5, usually one new story, and then the rest are there, except for the Howard the Duck things. The rest are reprints.
Yes. So this one was scientists looking for a renewable energy source. They encounter this group called, I'll do it really quickly, Cult of Entropy, who has this golden brain. Man-Thing attacks the cult, and the brain creature creates a monster to battle him. And I think it's called the Glob, who previously had battled the Incredible Hulk. But Man-Thing uses a tree to explode the monster, and the brain slips out and goes into the swamp or into the water, I think, and it kind of gets washed away out of their area. And the brain is actually Joseph Timms, who was the Glob, right, that battled Hulk.
Yeah.
The brain washes ashore and just kind of creates its own brand new body. And the leader of the cult of Entropy, is called Yogg-Saron. At least that's how I pronounced it. And he wants that brain back, right? I mean, he kills the guy who was responsible for letting it go. But these scientists that were originally encountered by the cult, who were saved by Man-Thing, they go on to create, what is it? Omegaville, right? This
Omegaville,
energy self-sufficient city. Again, back to the environmental themes with Gerber. But this golden brain that created himself just kind of wanders in with no memories, and they're like, oh, okay, hey, you can help us, you can work for us, we'll call you Joe, right? And so ultimately he's helping out in this great this wonderful society where they're trying to build a communal type city that isn't energy dependent, isn't oil and coal dependent. And he's tracked down, Joe is, as the golden brain by the cult. And the Yogg-Saron kind of takes control of his mind and turns him back into the glob. He starts destroying Omegaville. Man-Thing arrives, defeats the glob, and I think remnants of the glob killed Yogg-Saron. Right? Isn't that what happened?
Yeah. He covers them in like a clay substance. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's GS1.
Yep, that's it. You got it. So here, I'll go quickly through this one too, Bill. Here, the wife of F.A. Schist, who lives in Miami, apparently, hires or goes out with a sheriff because, the last time she saw him, it was out there in the swamp. And they encounter the Man-Thing. The sheriff, shoots him, but obviously it's ineffective. But she's Mrs.
Vivian,
because he threatened the Schist daughter, although she didn't think that he was going to really harm her.
Carol.
So Mrs. Schist is like Carol, right? Convinced that he killed Schist, which he did, but
right,
she doesn't know that.
Not in the way she thought. Yeah,
it was very complicated. Well, you were very. So she goes back and ups the ante, because remember he originally offered $500,000 for somebody to kill the Man-Thing. Now she goes back and assembles another team of scientists and gives them $1 million for the destruction of the Man-Thing. But the only guy who will do it says, I won't destroy him. I want to capture him for study.
Correct.
And he's a guy from New York Museum of Natural History or something.
Yep. This is what Jackson was referring to earlier with the candle maker, saying he was on exhibit in New York.
Yes. So they come up with this trap where these two hermetically sealed domes, they lure him in, and then with electricity they dry him out. And these domes contain him so he can't seep out, and it works.
Yep.
So they take him over. They transport him up to New York, and they put him. Reed Richards and Tony Stark appear as them, right?
Yeah.
And they're part. They do this artificial environment where he can still get nourishment from that swamp. And the scientist guy, which I forgot his name, he just wants to study him. But the museum people says, no, we got to make money here. This costs money, the salaries, the rent, whatever.
Yeah, so Dr. Gavin.
They assemble Dr. Gavin, right? They assemble the trustees, and they're like, yeah, Reed Richards and Iron Man says, yeah, it'll be safe. No, not a good idea. So they put him on. This reminds me a lot of King Kong,
Yes,
absolutely. They put him on display, and of course he keeps telling him, hey, strong emotions will get this guy going. Yeah. Well, as soon as the audience sees him, it's hundreds of people. He goes berserk, breaks out. I mean, one punch, he's out.
Yeah.
Reed Richards tries to capture him. He goes right through him. Doesn't work. He's out now in New York. And all he wants to do is just get out of there, because all the emotions, are just driving him crazy. There's
Correct.
hundreds of people around.
It's too much.
But again, once he's out of that natural habitat, though, he starts to weaken. And so I think is it Carolyn convinces the mother to return it back to
Carolyn's the daughter,
yeah.
Vivian's the mom. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. And she's like, listen, you can see he's just an animal. Like he doesn't have volition to kill anybody. He's just trying to get out from that situation. Right. And so reluctantly, she agrees, and they take him back to the Florida Everglades.
Yeah. Dr. Gavin says, I still want to research him, but I want to do it in his own environment in a safe way.
Yeah. In his environment. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Giant size
take
3.
This one?
Yeah, sure. That's Alcala with interior art as well. Gil Kane cover. So Clonus, the evil wizard that we referred to before with Martak, he's taken over Korik's home. Remember the guy that was the barbarian from Fear 19 that Dakeem made the special helmet for? He has a home realm called Catharta, and that's been taken over. Dakeem and Jennifer Kale sent Man-Thing to help rescue Korik because Korik went there. Well, he explained it later to them what happened, but essentially he's getting ready to be like sacrificed.
Yep.
And ultimately, Man-Thing and Korik are transported to the realm between night and day by Dakeem. Korik explains that his home, when they came back from their last adventure, his home was under invasion / occupation. His parents were killed. Clonus wanted Catharta, even though it doesn't really have any like inherent value or natural resources. It's important for his plan of domination. There's some mystical significance of that place to the nexus of all realities, right? So they all go to Catharta to battle Clonus and Mortak, and then they'll also fight him on Earth. But before they're transported to Earth, Dakeem says, "I know that one of us won't make it through this fight." So they go on Earth. Dakeem is ultimately the one. He's killed by a spell from Clonus. Jennifer Kale traps Clonus and Mortak in these cocoons and like sends them off into space. And Dakeem, that's where he reveals that, yes, I knew I wasn't the one that was going to make it, but I wanted everybody to go in there fighting, not worrying about me or anything like that. And he knew he was fated to die in the battle, and he was at peace with that ultimately. And everybody else gets sent back to their appropriate place.
To their reality. Yeah. That's kind of like just the way it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So this is a kind of this is one where, again, Man-Thing is nowhere near the centerpiece of the story.
Yeah.
Essentially, it opens up in a funeral for this young man. I think Edmund, is it?
It is.
Edmund Winshed, right?
Yep.
Right. And it's weird because when it opens, it's raining, and Gerber goes through all the people that are there mourning, and he's like, well, this is the father who was, supportive, and the mother, and the aunt, and the brother. I mean, the uncle, and the gym coach, right? But then somebody in the back, this girl, Alice, during the funeral, steps up and says, "This is a lie. These are all lies. Yeah. He hated you. You hated him, So,
yeah.
So I think the uncle goes back there and starts beating her up, takes her outside.
That's correct.
And the Man-Thing intervenes.
Yeah. Yes.
Man-Thing intervenes.
And he burns him.
and I think it gets burned. I think
He
gets
does.
burned.
Yeah.
So Alice gets away. The next day, she shows up at school, all beat up, a black eye. Apparently, she has the diary of Edmund.
Yep.
And apparently, it has information which could be damning to the family and to the coach. So the coach confronts her and says, I need that diary, or it belongs to the parents. You should go to the parents. And she's like, no. So she wants to publish it in the school newspaper or yearbook or something.
Yep, school newspaper.
So she goes to the meeting of the yearbook staff, newspaper, okay. And she tells them about it. And essentially what happened is that he had very low self-esteem. He was very depressed. And he was constantly being harassed by his father, by his mother, that he was fat, that he was that he had no ambition, that's of course,
the key, though.
He had a relationship with
the weight. The weight is the key, Roger, on this one. It's definitely everything emanates from his weight issues.
Yeah, it's a lot of body shaming stuff here. He does have an aunt, which he had a good relationship with, and Alice. Those are the only two people that he had, that were worth a darn, essentially. But the family, again, after she tells everything here to the staff, to the people in the newspaper, some of them are like, well, maybe we should let the coach give his side.
Right.
I'm not sure if we should publish it right now. And she's like, wow, I mean, what do you mean his side? He's gotten away with murder here. Essentially what happened is that he had Edmund run laps, and because he couldn't, he said, you got to run more, and because he waved to Alice, he got to run more, and I think he had a heart attack and he died.
Correct. He pushed him too hard and he died. Yes.
Pushed him too hard. Right. Yeah. Yep. And again, and all the parents and everything that all contributed to that, right? So that's all in his diary. Well, not that part. That Alice observed, obviously.
Right.
So the parents and the coach accost Alex and string her up in the gym, and try to get her to give them the diary.
Correct.
Of course, lots of emotions here: hate, anger, fear. So Man-Thing comes in there, and Alice is released, and he burns a few people. I think the coach is ultimately killed.
Yeah,
as I recall.
Yep.
And Alice had like a vision or like a dream of Edmund, while she was strung up there.
Well, it's very allegorical that Edmund and Man-Thing are mirroring one another.
Very allegorical, correct. Right. Yes, that's correct. Let me see. And essentially, each one of them came to face what they did to Edmund, and that was ultimately their undoing.
Right.
And of course, Alice, was vindicated, and Man-Thing just walked back out.
Yep.
Oh, real quick. There's also Howard the Duck is back. He survived. He's landed in Cleveland, where he met Gorko the Man Frog, and the Man Frog was squished by a police car. End of story.
Yeah, but they think he's some crazy guy in a duck suit. All right, so number 5.
They try to unzip him, and it's all feathers. Right. Yeah,
that's right. It was the prosecutor, right? And then he eventually said, "Just get this thing out of my jail."
Get out
of here. Yes, number 5. That's Ted Salas, and Ellen Bent, right? His girlfriend at the time. They go to a fortune teller at a carnival, and he tells essentially, hey, you're going to have issues in the future, dude. And it kind of reveals to him through a couple different stories. One of them was followers of a demon, Erthold, I think it is, who grab a baby this lady's babysitting in an apartment. She grabs the baby and takes it back to all these other cult followers to sacrifice the baby to this demon. And Man-Thing intervenes, rescues the baby, kills several of the cultists. I think the place is lit on fire, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, the lady who kidnapped the baby, who was wanting to sacrifice it, she's standing in the flame with nothing happening to her until Man-Thing arrives on the scene. Breaks everything up, breaks the connection that she has with the demon up, and she starts burning as well. So that was one, right?
The baby falls out with Man-Thing, but because he's so soft, the baby's okay. He
cushions the blow. Exactly. Yeah. So the baby ultimately is saved. Another one was very, very. It was it was so Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it was pretty bad.
Perfectly Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. But it was two kids, Kip and Tally, who are in love. Their parents hate each other. They each write a note and run off to the swamp. Hopefully their parents will see it, come to get them. And then in their concern for the kids, they will mediate and start getting along better. But essentially, the boy's father used to work for the girl's father, and they had a falling out. And the girl's father is rich, the boy father is poor. But she, the girl of the two, the girl and boy duo, she falls into the swamp. Man-Thing's actually going to burn her because she's scared. He's not going to help her, but she does die in the swamp when he's able to get her. And seeing what happened, since I think both parents, or at least the boy's father, came armed, Kip, the boy, commits suicide. So it's definitely Romeo and Juliet-ish. I don't know there's much more on there, but essentially they couldn't get along. The parents were fighting constantly all throughout. So third one was
the tragedy of love.
Correct. Yeah, it was the Montagues and Capulets, right? So there's this hunter that wants to get revenge on Man-Thing for burning his face. He tracks him down with like some emotional tracker that he has. He can track empathic emotions or something. And he's hired these highly trained mercenaries to help him deal with them, right? So they track him down. He has this helicopter that he's firing missiles at, killing his own men that he hired down there. In the process, he doesn't care. He just wants to get the Man-Thing. And ultimately, once I think some of the mercenaries realize this dude we knew he was delusional. Now we know he's deranged, and I'm not letting him kill me. So one of the remaining soldiers turns and fires a missile at the helicopter and blows up this guy, Hunter, and essentially ends the vengeful tirade against Man-Thing.
Yep, perfect. And that's it. That's the whole series 1 of Man-Thing. Final thoughts, and then we'll get out of here. We'll say hi to the chat. By the way, welcome, Mike. I just saw you in here. Cream City Comics.
What's going on?
Great to have you here. Yeah, I know this went a little long, but this was a very, very deep series, Bill. To me, I enjoyed it at a cerebral level, right? But it's not an easy read. It's not a fun read, I would say. Gerber has a lot of baggage that he puts the reader through in these issues. So if you do pick up this series, hey, Alan, how you doing, my friend?
What's going on,
Great.
Alan?
Thank you. Yeah, welcome back. That he's got all these issues, so I'll end with this.
He's got just about every issue.
Would I recommend this? Yeah, he's got everything, right? Would I recommend this series? Yes, with a proviso. I would recommend it, but only if you're into heavy prose, a lot of human condition type stories, a lot of veiled political and social commentary. then this is your meat. This is for you. But if you're just trying for light reading, stay far away from this, because this is really sometimes emotionally wrenching stuff.
Yeah.
And Bill hit a good point that I think if we would have let Gerber, espouse what he really wanted to tell us, this would be, graphic novels all throughout, because he has so much to tell, and so much that he wanted to show us through these characters. And the fact that he had Man-Thing to do it, I think, is a really incredible feat of writing. That he was able to bring those characters and make them, for the most part, very believable. And Man-Thing was just sort of, he was like the nexus, essentially, that for the stories. He was never the main player. He was always just the intervening, almost like the force of nature in the story.
Right.
So I'm going to leave it there. I give it an A as far as creativity, as far as the quality of the writing, but it's definitely a chore to get through this. It took most modern comics you can read in 5 minutes. These took me 20 to 30 minutes each.
I think some very, very fair points. I'll agree with Jackson, where he said one of the best channels out there talking about Alan with After Comics. If you haven't seen his channel, you are in for a treat. He's got a voice like butter, and he's got a collection even better. So be sure to check him out if you haven't. I'll say, well, obviously, I'm a fan of this series. Gerber, I think, Gerber's not everybody's cup of tea. He is very, he could be very political at times. I like the fact that he tried to tackle some issues. I like that he at least tried to get some dialogue going about different social issues that he saw around him. Plus, I do think that there was a slight push by Stan and the powers that be to try to appeal more to a college crowd. And so it wasn't just this book. It was several different books where they did sort of take some of the socioeconomic issues that the young people were facing those days and sort of weave them into their stories a bit more frequently than they had in the past. So I like the fact that he tried to deal with some of the heavier issues. But because of that, I do think that he fell short and fell flat on some of his attempts to do so. He really pushed the boundaries in my opinion, in what comic books could do, and maybe in some cases in what comic books should do. And so I think good and bad, he experienced both as the result of that boundary pushing. So a seminal series. I thought it was very good, very important, very strong writing. It's something that you could almost draw a line from like the Man-Thing series to a Mouse later on and say, wow, you can trace it back and say there was really some strong writing many, many years back, not just at this one point. But in addition to that, he really had some strong artists to help too. The Man-Thing is not the most, not the easiest thing to draw and not the most characteristic thing to draw. And so you really need to rely on some strong artists. And I think for the most part, he had that support too.
Yeah, agreed. And good point. That really did help because the amalgamation of the writing and the art really coalesced really well in this series.
Yeah.
There were no gaps. There were no, what happened there? I mean,
right.
I think because the writing was so tight, the artist had a good foundation to go on. And so you never had like, what's happening here? Or even when there were flashbacks, they were all logically placed. So again, I agree with everything you said. The only thing is, to me, it wasn't like a regular comic book reading at all. I mean, this is as far as I would say from a superhero comic as you can get. It's almost its own genre to me. But I'm glad it exists. I'm glad that there's this kind of cerebral series that, you notice there were no superheroes, there were like those illusions. There were no superheroes in this series. It was almost like the Master of Kung Fu where he wanted the stories to be the star and not the fluff around it. And I respect that very much. And I think that was an incredible kind of dynamic that he brought that you just didn't see anywhere else.
Yeah. It's almost like,
are you going to spin the wheel?
Yeah, I will. It's almost like for me, this was an emotional, intellectual forerunner of like what you'd see from Vertigo so many years later, when he had so many heavy, well-written stories at those times. So yes, let me see if I can put this
comparison. Yeah.
Share screen. And all right, we got the wheel. Let me know if we can see it. Yes.
Right. Yep. Let me get it in there.
All right.
Yep.
All right. How many times do I spin this rascal?
Let's just do 2.
Okay. Here's spin 1.
Yeah.
Omega.
Ooh,
and here's the official spin. See what we're doing next time. All right. I know you'll be happy about that one. Astonishing Tales.
Yes.
The Deathlock issues.
Yeah, just the Deathlock parts, right?
Yep. That will be exciting.
Perfect. Woohoo!
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So we'll get together, 2-3 months from now on your channel. That excites me.
Yep.
That excites
That'll be
me.
lots of fun.
One of my favorite series of all time. So that's you're going to get a lot of smiles from me on that one.
Fantastic. Well, we'll see if we can invite Patrick for a guest appearance, maybe.
Oh, that would be great. He's probably more of an expert than I am. Well, thank you again to this chat, Jackson, who's been hanging here the whole time, over 2 hours. I really Hey, Imperious Flex, great to have you here. I hope you enjoy. These are very deep dives. These are not streams that you can just sort of say, oh, well, I'll just pop in and pop out. But if you really like to know about our opinion, and again, there's spoilers here, guys, but there are things we never even touched on in these stories. They're so deep and they're so complex. So trust me, I could reread it again and grab another conclusion. So, but if you do like this type of storytelling, give it a shot. It'll challenge you. Let's put it that way. Bill, you're the best, my friend. You're on point as always. I'm so honored to do these with you because, like, when my throat is dry, I know that you know this backwards and forwards. So everybody remember, Comic Mag Musings channel is in the description below. Remember to sub him up just in case you're not. And 2 or 3 months down the line, we will be tackling Astonishing Tales on Comic Mag Musings channel. Good night, Bill. Good night, chat. Everybody knows what I'm going to say. Be kind to each other, be blessed, and be back. Don't get stuck